Fundamentals of Programming Languages 2 course, that is exception handling. Before starting with this unit, let me know, do you know about errors in programming language? What are the errors? What are different types of errors? Have you faced any error in your programming or in your lab turns? Any sort of error?
Yes, ma'am.
So look at this code and just tell me, is this code error free? So what I have done here, this is a class, my class. In this class, I have an array and I want to calculate sum of elements of an array. So accept function is accepting elements and calculate function is calculating sum and displaying it. And main function, I have created object of my class m1 called m1.accept and my.calculate. So can you see any errors here?
At line 21, there is missing closing parenthesis.
This
And
one,
After
also
I,
semicolon.
yes, this one, right? Here,
yes, ma'am.
then semicolon is missing, this closing bracket is missing, right? So let's see what this compiler tells us. So it has given some errors. Square closing bracket expected, then semicolon, not a statement because of this. Illegal start of exception, expression, we haven't closed that bracket. Semicolon expected. So what are these errors? These are compile time errors or runtime errors or syntax errors. So if I put this, let's resolve one error at a time. So I put closing bracket as it has mentioned as first error on line number 21. So I have put closing bracket there. I know there are many errors still left, but I'll just want to tell you how compiler resolve these errors. So now closing bracket is there. So on same line, it has identified that semicolon is missing. And then these errors are still there because of this closing bracket. Reached end of the file while parsing means no closing bracket. So we'll put here semicolon and check will our program work. So still these errors because of closing parenthesis. Now is the code error free? What is this error? We have defined I, integer I, and instead of I am trying to use J, which is not defined. So this is undefined symbol J. Cannot find this symbol. So this is also a syntax error, or what we can say is compile time error. Program is not executing till I resolve all compile time or syntax errors from my code. Now is the code error free? It is asking me enter 5 numbers. Execution is started from main. Object is created and m1.accept. In m1.accept, it has started executing this line. It has displayed this line, enter 5 numbers. And now I can enter 5 numbers. So the program should work, right? Now program is error free. There are no errors, no syntax errors. Compiler has approved this code. So program should work. What should be the output if I give 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? My sum function is adding all these variables sorry, numbers and displaying sum of array elements. So it should be the output. This program will work, right? There are no errors, no syntax errors, no compile time errors. It is not working. It has given some exception in thread main, java.lang.array index out of bound exception 5. What does that mean? myClass.cal means my class is class, cal is a method, line number 29. What is on line number 29? It is while executing this statement, Java interpreter got an exception. And line number 14, main.java, while executing this statement. So can you see any error in this code? Why we got this exception, array index out of bound? Anyone can tell.
Ma'am, because in the above, when we accept those elements, there
Hmm.
the range is less than 5. So maybe because of that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Our size of array here, can you see? We have declared array of size 5. So there are a of 0, a of 1, a of 2, a of 3, and a of 4. So total 5 values are stored in array. Even for accepting these elements, we are accepting a of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4. That is 5 elements. A of 0, A of 1, A of 2, A of 3, and A of 4. But while calculating the sum, by mistake, it is not happened purposefully, but by mistake sometimes array index gets out of bound. Means the size of array is 5 and you are trying to access sixth element for which memory is not allocated, but compiler cannot find this error because syntactically your program is correct. What compiler looks at only the syntax or grammar of a language, that is semicolons are there or brackets are closed or parentheses are closed or variables are declared or not. So all these are compile time errors. These are called syntax errors. But when program is syntactically correct, compiler has successfully compiled your code, still your program may go wrong because of some logical errors. These are logical errors or runtime errors, which is called exception. Can you see here the word exception? Any other example of exception? Can you think of any similar to this array index out of bound? If I write here 5 instead of 6, program will run. Note that this is not the compile error. Program was compiled and you could execute it and randomly it has closed without showing any output and you didn't know the reason. It had just thrown an exception, array index out of bound. So do you think any other exception? Such type of runtime errors where program is syntactically correct but can go wrong at the time of execution. Okay, in main, let me comment this. Here I have two variables, integer a, which is equal to say 10, integer b, which is equal to 5, and I want to display division, a divided by b. Division is, here I'm displaying a slash b. Assume that you are accepting data from a user. User may enter any value for A, any value for B. So program is syntactically correct. You are getting the output 2. There is no compilation error. But instead of A, or let me accept these two numbers from user. Instead of hardcoding it, I need to use use scanner class object. A is equal to enter two numbers. Auto accept element sc dot next int, and b is equal to sc dot next int. So program is syntactically correct. Program can execute and you can get the output. Enter two numbers. I can enter say 100 and 30 and I can get output. The program is running properly. But by mistake, if user enters some other values for B instead of if A is 111 and B is 0. So here you can see exception in thread main java dot lang arithmetic exception divide by 0, and it is not executing. So this is called divide by 0 exception or arithmetic exception. Divide by 0 is not defined in maths. So this is an exception. Even if program is syntactically correct, if user entered some value, suppose user entered, let me explain you again. Note that these errors are not done purposely, but sometimes due to programming or due to, so here I want to enter say 100 and instead of 0, I'm entering 0.50. Now see how many exceptions are there. Exception in thread main java.util.input mismatch exception. Why input mismatch? Because I am expecting integer value and user has entered double value, floating point value. So this is an exception for next int. You are expecting integer and you have entered floating point value. Java is very strict about type conversion, type checking. We have seen that it is called strongly typed language. That's why Java is called strongly typed language. So such type of exceptions you'll get while executing your projects or while you're working on a large project and you didn't know how to get rid of these exceptions. So and your code will stop abruptly in the middle of execution. So you didn't want that. You want the exception should be handled properly, proper closure should be given, error should be user friendly. You have to mention the error like enter element or we are expecting integer input here, please enter integer value, like this. User should understand what that error is. So this technique is called exception handling. We need to handle these exceptions. So I hope you are clear about what is exception and what are the errors. Now we'll look at our presentation.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, when I run some of the programs on Eclipse,
Mhm.
like when I use this
Mhm.
scanner,
Mhm.
then for a few programs it gives me the error like that object is not closed. So I need to close it. Then,
No need,
but
no
for
need. Sc dot
but not
close.
all the programs give me the same error, but
Hmm.
only few. Then why is it so? Why does it happen?
Yes, see, and whenever you are creating object of that scanner class, here I'm creating two objects, one in main function and one in calc function. So for scanner, we are using system.in as an input. Means we want to read input from system.in here. So in is input of the stream and that stream is open. We are accepting input from that stream. So whenever we use scanner class, it is better always to use sc.close function. So there is sc.open and sc.close. Otherwise, it will give an warning or error. It is just a warning. You have not closed that. Sorry. Sc.close. Then the error will not be there, but it is not compulsory to use it. You can ignore warnings, but you have to uh, no, you cannot ignore errors. Warnings can be ignored. Warning is just instruction that you have to close that particular stream. We have opened this stream. and now we want to close that string. That's it. It is
Okay.
not compulsory. And note that once you have closed and you again try to open it, it will give you an warning. So it's better whenever you are closing that string, that should be at the end of your code. Means in this case I'm opening it here. If I close it, it will give me warning again when I try to open it. So I have commented that part. Sometimes it takes time, right? GDB.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, the error, the warning that Anushka just said, even I was facing the same warning, especially in programs in which I had created a subclass. So in that, ma'am, again I had written scanner SC equal to new scanner and all that. So instead of that, when I erased it and I wrote scanner SC and semicolon, that is, I introduced SC as a new variable, that warning was gone. But I did not understand how.
But when you create SC, your scanner SC, it is just a variable. You haven't allocated memory yet. You're not creating the object of scanner class. You're just creating a variable or reference.
Ma'am, actually, means this usually happens when if we use the
Generated
scanner
object.
object as next line, right?
Hmm.
So at that time, if we try to enter the next object, like after
Hmm.
entering the string, if I
Hmm.
want to enter integer, then it
Integer.
gives error.
Yeah, yeah. Why? Because we have seen in input output how input and output in Java works. So input is input stream. So when you read next line, that is stored in a buffer. So buffer has already something. So what you have to do is just write two times sc dot next int, sc dot next int. So first sc dot next int will clear that buffer, and second sc dot next in will accept your input. Try this one.
Okay,
There are
ma'am.
some what we can say
Ma'am, so
codes
we
in
have to
Java.
write it.
Yes, Manisha.
We have to write it continuously, na? That means syntax se dot next in, se dot next in.
Yeah, continuously. For
Okay.
example, here instead of sc dot next in, if I have a string variable, the string name, it will not make always a problem, but sometimes there is a problem with a buffer. Buffer gets full, and instead of accepting b, it will directly go to the next line. It will not accept b, right? So what you have to do is b dot next int, and on the same line, next line, you can write b dot next int. That's it. You have to write this line twice. I think problem is with my internet connection. No such element exception. On line number 48. SC dot next, I have to use next only, not next line. Write this line twice. And directly write here string name is equal to SC dot next line. C is capital, okay.
Ma'am, I think that we are accepting it twice, like in B. So we just need to declare it, like instead of storing it in B. If we remove that B equal to and just write that SC dot next
Uh,
in.
I'll comment that string part and just will check whether integer is working fine or not. The problem for string accepting strings. And we have closed that scanner object. So we are getting this error because we have closed that scanner object here. Enter two numbers and we are not able to enter these two numbers. Again, it will give a problem while opening this object. So that's what I want to tell you. Whenever you are creating more scanner objects more than once, don't close it immediately. If you want, you can close it at the end. Otherwise, there will be such errors. Or no need to close, you can ignore that warning. Now what I have done here, I ask user to enter a name. I'm accepting a name from user and immediately I'm accepting integer value. And let me not accept it again. First we'll check what the error will get. If we accept integer immediately after a string, I should have commented this part. Enter a name. I'm entering a name, Cummins College of Engineering. Note that I have written here sc dot next line. So it will accept this name unless and until till I enter key. Now I have entered enter key. It is waiting for number. So I'll enter 1, then I'll enter 2, and division is 2. Now why division is 2? Value of A should be 1, value of B should be 2, division should be 0, right? This code is going wrong. Why? It has didn't accepted 1, it has accepted 2 in A. So this line, it had ignored this line. So value of A is 2 and value of B is 1. So sorry, 2 dash divided by 1. So answer should be 2. It's correct. You're getting 2 and 1 and result is 2. So there is no error at this point, but if you get such error, it is not accepting integer value, then you should write that line twice. If again you run this code, value of B is 11 and A is 2. So here it is not giving any problem, but sometimes it gives due to when you accept in character or string from the user. That time it will just skip enter number 1, this line, and it will immediately move to the next line. So in that case, what you have to do is just write that particular line next int or next double twice to accept that input, and your program problem will get solved. Any queries regarding scanner? So let's start with our next unit, unit number 6, exception handling. So in this unit, we are going to cover errors and exceptions. What are the fundamental difference between error and exception? Different types of exceptions. Note that error is also one of the type of exception. Then how Java handles exception. Java handles exception in object-oriented way. And there are different keywords which are used in exception handling, that is try, catch, throw, throws, and finally. We are going to look at all these keywords and how we are going to use these keywords for handling Java exceptions. Then what are built-in exceptions? Built-in means the exceptions provided by Java collection, Java um, JDK, and we can create our own exceptions. So how to create custom exceptions, that we are going to see, and we'll see some of the inline illustrations with the concepts. So exception, what is an exception? Abnormal condition that arise in a code sequence at runtime. This is very important, at runtime. So some situations which is not a normal. In normal case, your program is running uh, fine. Means there are no errors. You are getting proper output. But for certain inputs or for certain conditions, your code is going wrong and you are not getting the expected output. So such abnormal conditions which arise at runtime is called an exception. So in other words, exception, you can say that it is runtime error. So when an exception occurs, normal flow of program is disturbed and the program or application terminates abnormally. So your program will come out of the execution state and will just display the error messages. Instead of going through the code properly, it will be stopped immediately. So it terminates abruptly, abnormally, which is not recommended. So we need, therefore, these exceptions need to be handled properly. So what is in computer language? So the in various computer languages like C, C++, they do not support exception handling. So errors must be checked and handled manually. Typically through the use of error codes and so on. So normally what we do, if you are working on file handling, you'll check if file pointer is not null, then you will start adding data to the file. If file pointer is null, you'll print error in opening the file. Or when you are working on some networking problem, first and most important thing in any networking problem is network or communication network should get established. Now whatever I am explaining you, you are listening to me, I'm sharing the slides are visible to you, because we have some communication network established. You and me are joined on the same Google link. That is a communication, or yeah, communication link. So first, whenever we write a program for networking, first step is build a communication line or set a network. And if there is an error in network, then there is no use of sending or expecting receiving data from the user. So first you have to check if connection is successful, then go ahead, else throw an error. So that we check manually using if and else conditions. For example, in this example, divide by zero. To avoid divide by zero, what you will do normally is you will add if condition. If denominator is equal to zero, don't uh, uh, solve that expression a less than b. Just print denominator is zero, so you cannot divide, and your program will work. Just it will show error, but rest of the code will work. But for every type of runtime error, you cannot write if and else, or you cannot handle those errors manually. It is okay for such type of conditions where divide by zero, or file opening or closing, or connection is established or not. These are known conditions where user may go wrong and problem will arise at runtime. But sometimes, like in case of, we have seen array index out of bound. So array is declared for size 5 and you are expecting sixth element. So such conditions, how you are going to check at compile time, or whenever if you search a code entirely, you may not find such errors. So these errors need to be handled programmatically instead of manually. So this approach is cumbersome and it is troublesome also. So Java exception handling avoids this problem, and in the process brings runtime error management into the, some code is there. So Java exception handling avoid these problems. So no need to manually checking for the errors. So program, when you can write a program in try block, you ask Java to check this code before executing. So it will handle the runtime error management into the compile time. So what are the errors and what is the exception? Java exception is an object. Now note that we are talking in terms of object oriented language. Exception, so whether it is array index out of bound, or divide by zero, or class not defined, or any exception. So think of exception and think that that exception is nothing but an object, like any other object, like string object or scanner object or complex object. So it is an object. Now what that object has, object should have what we know, it should have attributes and properties, that is behavior. So this object describes an exceptional, that is error condition, and has occurred in a piece of code. So it contains what that object of exception contains, which, what is the error and what is the type of that error. So when exception condition arise, an object represent exception is created and thrown in the method that caused the error. So it is an object which has description of that error, which is causing that particular exception. So if that exception condition arise while executing the code, object gets created automatically, which which has the explanation about that exception, and it is thrown. Note down this term, thrown in the method that caused the error. So it has, the object is created and it is thrown means it is pushed to that particular method. Now the method has to catch it. Once it is thrown, we need to catch it. So that method may choose, it may handle that exception itself or pass it on to the other method who is calling that method. Suppose method 1 has an exception, but method 1 is called from method 2. So that exception may get handled with method 1 or method 2. So either way, when the exception is thrown, it need to be catched either by that particular method or it may pass it on. The exception is caught and processed. So first thing is exception gets created. Exception is nothing but an object. It gets created. Once there is an exceptional condition arise, it is thrown in the method which caused it error. The method can handle this exception or it will pass it on. And such it can pass it to method 2, method 2 will pass it to method 3, like this. But somewhere that object must get caught and must be resolved or processed, or that we can call it as handled. So exceptions can be generated at by Java runtime system, or they can be manually generated by your code. You can also write your own code for handling this exception. Exception thrown by Java relate the fundamental errors that violate the rules of Java language or constraints of Java execution environment. So the code right now we have seen, and we have seen some examples of exception. So these are examples of exception handled by Java runtime environment. In our code, we haven't used try, catch, or we haven't handled those exceptions. These are handled by Java runtime environment. So why these exceptions are thrown? Because our code is not uh, satisfying the requirements or rules of Java language, or there are some constraints, I mean, in our program which is not matching with Java execution environment. So manually generated exceptions are typically used to report some error conditions to be called up a method. So we need to understand these 5 keywords: try, catch, throw, throws, and finally. So we'll look at all these keywords one by one and how they work. So the program that you want to monitor for exception are contained in try block. Note that try is a block. Block means in a curly braces, like for block or while block or a functional block. Similarly, try is a block. It starts with curly brace and end with curly brace. So the program that you think it may go wrong, user may give some another input, or there can be some exceptions generate at this point. You can write that code in try block. So if an exception occurs within try block, it is thrown automatically. So you can catch this exception using catch. Now catch is also a block, and handle it some rational manner, give proper error. System generated exceptions are automatically thrown by Java runtime system. So manually throw an exception, we can use throw keyword. In this program, in our program, we haven't used throw keyword or try or catch, but still we got some exceptions because these exceptions automatically created and thrown by Java runtime system. But if it is our own exception, user exception, we can use throw keyword to throw that exception. Any exception that is thrown out of a method must specify such by the throws clause. So we'll see throws clause. It's just a reminder to a compiler that this method may throw this type of exception. Wait a minute. So try block contains the code that may go wrong or that may cause exception. Exception is generated by in a try block. It can be thrown using throw keyword or can be thrown automatically by Java runtime environment and need to be catched using catch block. So try block and catch block, and throws clause is used for a method which is causing any exception. So it is just a declaration that this method may throw this type of exception. And there is one more block which is called finally block. Even if you have try block and catch block, there are some statements which need to be used. uh, Whether a exception is called or not, exception is generated or not, that you can write in finally block. So this is just a very brief introduction to these 5 keywords. We are going to look these keywords in detail. So let me show you our example again. I'm commenting this class part. Just will focus on main. In main, I'm accepting 2 elements, A and B. And we are getting X divided by 0 exception. If user has entered B is equal to 0. No need of sc dot close also. So look at this code very carefully. Only these 5 lines. Enter 2 numbers. If I enter properly, say 200 and say 20, I'm getting the correct division. So this statement is executing properly and you are getting the output division is 10. Now suppose while entering 220, by mistake I entered 20 and 0. What happened? So this value is 20, this is 0. This line is getting executed. First, it will try to divide this a less than, a slash b or a divided by b. And here exception is called. So this statement is not executed. System.out.println division is. And your code immediately interrupted, came out of the execution and displayed this error. Exception in thread main and divided by 0. That's it. It has not displayed this line. Or what I'll do is I'll create one more variable here, integer c, and c is equal to a slash b. Just for your understanding. So now I have 3 variables a, b, c, a and b. We are accepting from the user, and c we are c is a result of a slash b, and we are displaying this result. So when we entered normal values, this line gets executed at line number 51. So 2 and 1. So result is 2. So this line is getting executed and the result is printed. But if I enter divide by 0, 2 and 0, this line is not getting executed. Now this is very simple example. In a large code, you can imagine that if you got the exception at the start and your program will stop immediately and you're not getting where the code is going wrong. Now how to handle this exception? So this line may cause a problem. So put this line in try block. Look here carefully. I'm not using any other keyword. So I'm just saying try. This catch and finally automatically generated. So in try block, I have to write C is equal to A slash B. So try is a block. Note that try immediately should be followed by catch block. The catch exception E. And in this catch block, you can write system.out.println what is that exception is. Divided by 0 exception. Here you can write any suitable message that you want and you can concatenate this E. This object will return the string, this one. This string is called stack stress. So it will return this stack stress E semicolon. No need to do this. You can just display this message if you want. Finally block, it is optional. Either you can provide finally block or not needed. It will execute whether the exception is caused or not. I'll just write hello here. Okay. Note that here I have used try keyword, try. Then in try block, I have written a statement which may cause exception. Then catch block, currently here it is exception E, is an object of type exception. And divide by 0. I'm printing this in catch block. And finally block, I'm just printing hello. And after that, it will print the result. Now I'll give normal input with input without, oh, it is saying C is not initialized. Okay. Proper input, that is say 10 and 2. So what will be the output? If I give value of A as 10 and B is 2, it will calculate C is equal to A slash B, that is 10 slash 2, which is 5. Then will it enter into the catch block? Will it enter into the finally block? Will it print the system.out.println division is? So enter two numbers. I'm entering 10 and 5. Normal input. So note that if input is normal, A less than B, A divided by B, 10 slash 5, you're getting the out input. No exception is there. So it will skip this catch block. It will not enter into the catch block as exception object is not created and it is not thrown by the system. It will enter into the finally block. It will print hello. So after 10 and 5, hello is printed. And after finally block, it has printed the remaining, whatever, it will continue with the remaining code. Here we just have one line, system.out.println division is C. And if I enter a 0 for denominator, so 10 and 0. So now Java runtime environment, I have not used here throw keyword. Java runtime environment has created an object of type exception automatically, arithmetic exception, and it has thrown that object. And that object is cached by this catch block E, and it is printing this divide by 0 exception. So this line will be printed divide by 0 exception colon till this R statement. And this is a stack trace. This line was stored in E object. If you remove E, you'll just get this. And after that, again, even exception gets thrown or exception is there, it will execute finally block and it will execute remaining statement. Value of C is considered as 0. That's why Java compiler asked me to initialize C. So for today, we'll stop here. We will see try, catch, and finally throw and throws more detail. For the time being, just understand what is an error and what is an exception and why we need to handle these exceptions. So in previous example, this line was not getting executed. We have not using try and catch block. So immediately program is getting stopped at this line without try and catch block. And if you apply try and catch, program gets executed even if there is an exception. It is giving me the output 0 and rest of the code will work. So we'll stop here for today.